Now that we have gone through the muscles of the anterior compartment, it will be easier to understand the course of nerves and arteries in the front of the forearm. In the anterior compartment of the forearm, we see 3 nerves and their branches along with 2 arteries and their branches. The 3 nerves are named median nerve, the anterior interosseous nerve, and ulnar nerve. The 2 arteries in the anterior compartment of the forearm are ulnar artery and its branches, radial artery and its branches. Starting with the details of the median nerve. First, we have the median nerve, which leaves the cubital fossa by passing between the 2 heads of the pronator teres muscle. The course of this nerve is that it continues downward behind the flexor digitorum superficialis and rests posteriorly on the flexor digitorum profundus. At the wrist, the nerve emerges from the lateral border of the flexor digitorum superficialis muscle and lies behind the tendon of the palmaris longus. It enters the palm by passing behind the flexor retinaculum. The nerve gives 4 branches throughout its course. These branches are articular branch to the elbow joint, muscular branches to the superficial group of muscles, except for flexor carpi ulnaris, the anterior interosseous nerve, and lastly the palmar cutaneous nerve. The articular branch carries sensation from the joint. The muscular branch that innervates the muscles of the anterior compartment of the forearm has already been discussed in the previous section. The palmar cutaneous branch is distributed as shown here. And lastly, the anterior interosseous nerve. This nerve supplies deep muscles of the forearm after it emerges from between the 2 heads of the pronator teres. Its articular branches supply the wrist and distal radioulnar joint along with the joints of the hand. The second nerve in this compartment is the ulnar nerve. It passes behind the medial epicondyle of the humerus, crosses the medial ligament of the elbow joint, and enters the front of the forearm by passing between the 2 heads of the flexor carpi ulnaris. The ulnar nerve enters the palm by passing in front of the flexor retinaculum and lateral to the pisiform bone. This nerve also gives 4 branches. It also gives an articular branch to the elbow joint. The muscular branch supplies the flexor carpi ulnaris and the medial half of the flexor digitorum profundus. The ulnar nerve also gives 2 cutaneous branches to the palmar and dorsal surface of the hand. That is all about the 2 nerves in the anterior compartment of the arm. Let's get right to it and discuss the arteries in the forearm's anterior compartment. Here you see the arterial supply of the upper limb. The 2 arteries in the anterior fascial compartment of the forearm are the ulnar and radial arteries. You may recall we studied the brachial artery of the arm in your previous lecture. The ulnar and radial artery of the forearm is the terminal branches of the brachial artery of the arm, as you can see here. The ulnar artery is the larger of the 2 terminal branches of the brachial artery. If you look at this simplified diagram of the nerves and arteries of the forearm, you can see that the ulnar artery begins in the cubital fossa at the level of the neck of the radius. It runs in the anterior compartment of the forearm and gives off branches before entering the palm in front of the flexor retinaculum along with the ulnar nerve. The ulnar artery ends by forming the superficial palmar arch. The second artery of the anterior compartment of the forearm is the radial artery. It also begins in the cubital fossa at the level of the neck of the radius. It passes downward and laterally behind the brachioradialis muscle and rests on the deep muscles of the forearm. In the distal part of the forearm, the radial artery lies on the anterior surface of the radius and is covered only by skin and fascia. It is the site for taking the radial pulse. The radial artery leaves the forearm by winding around the lateral aspect of the wrist to reach the posterior surface of the hand. In the coming section, we will talk about the posterior compartment of the forearm.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.